It's becoming clear that over recent decades there's become a much greater emphasis on creating short-term profits. We have a business culture that's often about quarterly reporting, for example. And the problem with this approach is that organisations need to thrive and survive in the long term. And that means they need to make decisions that make sense in the longer term. So values-based leaders are individuals who tend to have a predisposition to think about the bigger picture, to think about the longer term. They're interested in actually making sure that the organisations they lead are able to survive and thrive in the decades to come, and are not so sensitive to making sure that the short-term figures and short-term profitability drive the behaviour within the organisation. I think it's absolutely vital that we all understand that if all parts of the ecosystem have a longer term view, that in the long run, that will be to the betterment of everybody.
It comes down again to values in terms of how do you value your stakeholders within the organization. If we are going to move away from short-term, let's say, shareholder objectives, then a leader needs to take a longer view in terms of what it is within his or her organization that actually delivers the long-term value which they have identified as strategic imperatives for that firm, and deliver on them, implement them, work with them, and basically align them and implement them within their culture.
Pressure, including incentives, is a huge influence on conduct, and if the remuneration basis for an organisation isn't aligned with its values, then you have problems.
One of the very interesting things about the global financial crisis is understanding what the real root causes were. And I think most people would agree that incentives played a big part in the behaviour that led to the risks that led to the crash that we all are aware of. And I make this point because it's very clear that if organisations have incentive structures that almost pressurise people into taking excessive risk or hunting out profitability at the expense of everything else, we have a construct that's likely to misbehave. What I mean by misbehaviour is putting the profitability and the short-term gains of the individual and the organisation above everything else. This is dangerous, this is risky. The worst case scenario is it could trigger another global financial crisis, and we're very motivated to do all we can to mitigate the risk of that happening. And a key part of that solution is about taking a more values-based leadership approach in helping organisations to thrive and survive in the future.
Pressure comes in various ways. Clearly, if you are, as an individual, pressurized to perform within a certain operational process, and one good example, of course, is remuneration. You will be behaving and acting, and your conduct will be aligned with that operational objective. If we as individuals have a values-based operational objective, those operational objectives themselves can not only be questioned, they can be reassigned to become more long-term, more aligned with what the other stakeholders, particularly here maybe customers, would want to see and want to engage with the organisation.
Oh, I'm sure it absolutely has a massive effect. In an organisation that has short-term aims, short-term reporting, you know, that can very often be driven by values that don't benefit the wider world.